The Nürburgring has had a wet, dry morning as you join us ready for race one of the weekend for the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The title race is rapidly reaching the end of the season because we have just 3 more weekends to go. This is round 25 out of 33. Max Verstappen, now part of the Red Bull Junior team, is the man on pole position, and it's Ed Jones here for Carlin in the Volkswagen-powered car that lines up alongside the Van Amersfoort-run Volkswagen car of Verstappen on pole position. And the real question mark now is, what tyres do people use? The cars qualified yesterday evening. It was a very wet session, but it got a bit drier towards the end as you look at Santino Ferrucci, who is third on the grid, his best ever qualifying in the championship, and he's only done a part season as well, don't forget, having first arrived in the series at Spa back in June. The grid is a bit jumbled because of the weather conditions of yesterday. Earlier on, about an hour ago, the heavens opened, and for the DTM free practice, it was torrential. Well, now the sun is out, it has stopped raining, the track is drying, there is a discernible dry line, and the real question marks are whether people will run wets or slicks, or indeed whether it's going to be a grid start or a safety car start. And there, as you see, Esteban Ocon, the championship leader, his team, Prema Power team, still waiting to really make that final call as to whether to go wets or slicks.
Looking at Santino's car just a moment ago, that was definitely on slicks. The team had made that decision. David, the drivers must influence the team's decision because, of course, they've been out on the outlap. They can suss exactly where the track is drying. There we can see slicks on the car Foco there, and the wets are standing by there. So the drivers must influence the team's decision to a degree because, of course, they've been out on their outlap. They know where the water is, where it isn't, how quickly the track is drying. Absolutely,
but what they perhaps don't know and what the teams have access to on the pit wall is a long-range weather forecast, yes. And they can say, OK, look, it's dry now, drying, but in 10 minutes' time, so maybe, let's say, 3 laps into the race, it could be wet again. They've got to factor that in as well. But, yeah, ultimately, the guy in the car, he's got to drive these conditions, so he will have a big say in it, that is for sure. Lucas Auer's car is another, I think I'm right in saying, that's going to be on slicks. And, of course, once somebody makes that call, everybody follows suit, because then you're in the same boat. The only reason you might roll the dice is if you're really at the back of the grid and you've got to try something clever to get up the order. But looking at the skies, they are brightening. It's still cloudy, it is still grey, and it's slicks for Antonio Giovinazzi, the Red Bull Ring winner. So now all the way down the grid, it looks as though slicks is the way to go. What we don't yet have confirmation of is whether it's going to be, as I say, a grid start, a standing start, or a safety car start. I don't think, actually, it is that wet now to make a safety car start really vital. But you'll see on the warming-up lap, if we have a warming-up lap, as to how much spray there is. If it's going to be a safety car start, it'll go straight into the race, of course.
Because that's the other thing to factor in is obviously grip conditions, absolutely crucial. But it's the amount of spray that's being chucked up. I mean, clearly it doesn't upset the pole sitter, does it? No. But whoever is further down that order, you know, their vision really is very, very compromised, David.
The one thing about this circuit, though, is that when the sun breaks through, the track dries very, very quickly. Now, the sun hasn't exactly broken through, but under normal circumstances, once it stops raining, it doesn't take too long for the road to dry out. So it could well be that come the end of the race, we are looking with no further rain at a bone-dry circuit. And so even if it's a bit greasy to start with, you don't want to go wets because they'll just get chewed up very, very quickly indeed. Race will not be suspended in case of starting rain, is what it says on our timing screen, which I think kind of means you've all had enough wet weather running this weekend. If it rains, it's up to you to make the best of it. Race will not suspended in case of starting rain, is what it says on our timing screen. And with a little bit of allowance for a language barrier, I think what that is implying from the race director is you've had wet-free practice, you've had wet qualifying, you've had enough time on the track in the rain. I don't need to stop it because you'll know where all the puddles are. And so the race would continue. I have to say, looking at the skies at the moment, it's almost heading for sunglasses weather.
Well, I wonder if that message is also indicative, of course, because race control will have access to all the weather data and radar as well.
That's true, yes.
I wonder whether that is just a little bit of a prediction that actually some rain is forecast.
Could be, and even before the race starts, we can offer you our first judicial moment, because Sean Delisle is already under investigation for exceeding the pit lane speed limit. We haven't even got into the race yet. So we've had this all...
then.
Exactly, we've had this all season, haven't we, Dave Richardson, with judicial updates, largely to do with track limits. Well, this is a pit lane speeding issue even before the green flag lap has got underway. Sean Galal's so keen to get out onto the circuit that he was a little bit, potentially a little bit overzealous with his right foot. He's not been given a penalty. He's under investigation, but it started early this round.
Yes, very much so. Okay, so as you can see there, looking at that picture, the straight here does still look very, very damp, but from our comms booth position, we can see that track is very, very quickly drying. So Max Verstappen then, I was talking to Jos Verstappen at Austria, and he alluded to the fact that there's some big news to come with regards to Max in the coming weeks, and despite pressure, he wouldn't reveal all, and I think it's been made public this week, the association with Red Bull, which must be a terrific boost to a young man's confidence, David.
But also adds pressure to Max himself. You know how ruthless Red Bull has proved to be. If you do not deliver, you're out. Max Verstappen in his first season of car racing, and you tend to forget that because he looks like a master and humbles people with far more car racing experience. He's had some bad luck along the way. He's had a few accidents of his own making, but he has had some mechanical woes. Otherwise, he'd be doing better in the championship. But he's had 7 wins. Spike Goddard is on the 10th row of the 12, and he is still on wet tyres. Now, this could be they're going to make a late call, but I think, looking at the countdown, we might have gone past that point. Engine fires up, so it looks as though he is going to be somebody that rolls the dice and thinks it's worth staying out on wets because more rain is due. If that rain comes within 2 or 3 laps, might work in his favour. If it's going to be after that, I think the wets will deteriorate and he's going to have to make a pit stop. I haven't seen anybody else who is on wet tyres thus far.
No, and I wonder whether that is... well, we will
there is
find
one.
out.
Andy
Yes,
Chang, sorry to interrupt you, Dave. He's new to the championship and he's on wets at the back. The Macanese driver who has been racing in the British Championship this year. Anybody else will spot, if we can, on the green flag lap. So 25 laps of racing. And the countdown has been completed. Everybody's off the grid, as you can see. So we've got this question mark over Sean Galal, and we've always got in the Eifel Mountains a question mark over the rain, over the weather.
Indeed we have. You make the fair point there, having seen those wet weather tyres on Spike Goddard. Now, if it stays dry for 4, 5, 6, 7 laps, those wet weather tyres are going to deteriorate very quickly. He's going to be looking for the damp patches on the track to try and cool them, and it's really, really going to compromise his race. So, time will tell if that gamble has paid off.
It's round 25 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. We are on the very short version of the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. They don't go down to the bottom of the hill. They have the little hairpin cut through. You're looking at the cars heading through the Mercedes arena. This is turn 1. David Addison and Dave Richardson with you for the first of 3 races and a spin already. And that is a Mucka liveried car. It is... Look, as though it is Lucas Auer, and it is. The Austrian has had a spin. Now, he has not fallen to the back of the grid, so he'll be able to retake his correct grid position, which should be 6th for this 25-lap race. But that goes to show how slippery it is. And, of course, this is a fairly gentle warming-up lap, and therefore they're not getting much warmth into the tyres. There it is. You can see the aftermath. He just looped it coming out of turn 1 and expect, therefore, others to do that on the start of the race. He drives off the road because there's limited lock on one of these cars. Straight away, he's picked up a bit of rubbish onto the tyres as well. So Lucas Auer on the first couple of laps will be worth watching just to see what state his tyres are in.
A feature of Nürburgring, of course, is turn 1, that right-hander. It's a very, very difficult turn to get absolutely right. It's even more difficult when you have the whole grid of cars going through it for the first time. So we can expect some action there, can't we, as the race gets underway?
Absolutely right. And then this is the second half of the lap where the speed builds. Let's have a look at the grid for round 25 of the championship. Max Verstappen on pole position for the 5th time this year. Ed Jones back in the championship after his back injury at Spa and going really strongly for 2nd. And Santino Ferrucci's best yet 3rd ahead of Esteban Ocon, the championship leader. Antonio Fuoco is 5th ahead of Lucas Auer. Then it's Giovinazzi, Blomqvist, Nissany and Rosenqvist to round out the top 10. Kingdon Sorales come next ahead of Galal and Jake Dennis, who had a lot of damage in free practice with an off. Dennis van der Laar is next on the grid ahead of Nicholas Latifi, Jules Shimkoviak and Tatiana Calderon. Gustavo Menezes will start 19th ahead of Spike Goddard. Then it's Sandro Zella, Alex Toril, newcomer Wing Chung Chang, or Andy Chang as he's known for short, and Michele Beretta at the rear of the grid. It's a short lap, And as the cars work their way now up towards the grid, we are set ready for round 25 of the championship. It is going to be a grid start. As you see, the green flag is there to signal that everybody is back, present and correct, ready for the start. And you can see now drivers squirming the cars around to try and urge a bit of warmth into them. You can see there is one dry line. Everybody who is on the outside of the circuit, which is the pole side where Verstappen will line up, you can see the difference in the colour of the tarmac. They should be able to make much better starts. So the likes of Jones, Ocon, Auer, Blomqvist, who are all on the inside up near the pit wall, they may struggle heading off the grid because they're going to get a bit more wheel spin. I'm looking down onto the cars as they head to the timing line, and I think I'm right in saying that Spike Goddard is the only one who is on those wet tyres, and it really is a gamble. It could be the most inspired choice ever in the history of inspired choices, or it could be that he's a pit visitor very early in the race. We will see. Andy Chang, sorry, he was the other one on wets, and he's at the rear of the grid. But I think in fairness, because he doesn't know the circuit, he doesn't really know the current generation of car quite so well, it's more just keeping him safe more than anything in his first outing in the championship. We're ready. Race 1 of 3 at the Nürburgring is about to get underway. 5 red lights will go on. When the lights go out, we will be racing now. Blomqvist makes a good start. Look at Ocon bogging down and a very slow getaway as well from what looks like Roy Nissany. Everybody swerves around him as the cars go down towards turn 1. It is in the lead. Verstappen as Fuoco tries the outside line. The Italian with his nose in front. He's on the wrong line completely, and he has to give way and slot into second place. Ferrucci is third, and look as they tiptoe round the first corner. Traction really is at a premium. Verstappen leads and he goes wide, and now up the inside goes Antonio Fuoco, who started, remember, on the third row, and Fuoco takes the lead. Great stuff. Antonio Fuoco takes over the lead as they work their way through turn 3 for the first time, and you can see just how wet it is at that part of the circuit.
So Antonio Fuoco leading. I was keeping an eye on Spike Goddard, and do you know what, David? He did make some progress. Certainly in the early stages of this race. You can see him right in the middle of your screen right now. Just being hung out to dry there a little bit as he takes the inside line there. He's shod with those wet weather tyres. But Antonio Fuoco around the section off of turn 1
was really brave, and it's worked well for him. And now, because he's got the best of the visibility, he's getting away, and also everybody else behind busy squabbling, and they're holding one another up as the cars work their way now up towards the mid part of the lap. They're heading now as a speed build up towards the chicane. So there it is, Fuoco leading the way. In second place is Verstappen. In third, it is Antonio Giovinazzi, who's made a good start. And then Ed Jones fourth, Ferrucci is fifth, Jordan King sixth, Ocon seventh as they rattle over the curb for the first time. Everybody trying to keep out of trouble. Somebody else that's gone backwards a bit off the grid, Tom Blomqvist. He needs to do some work over the remainder of the race. But now, Fuoco, is he being caught again by Verstappen? I would suggest he may well be. Sean Galisle.
My judicial point, Sean Galisle has got a drive-through penalty, and he is in P9, but he's got a drive-through penalty for exceeding the pit lane limit. We gave you the warning of that just before the start of the race. He was under investigation. Well, that investigation has concluded he's getting a drive-through penalty.
Okay, so that was even before the race had begun that he committed the offence. Right, Fuoco led at the end of lap 1 by 7/10 of a second from Max Verstappen. In third, Antonio Giovinazzi, Jordan King fourth, Ferrucci fifth, Jones sixth, Ocon there he is seventh, and he really is under attack because he's got Rosenqvist and Lucas Auer right up behind him. But Spike Goddard was 12th at the end of lap 1, and he's just broken into the top 10.
Well, the early stages of this race would suggest that that move by the team and for the driver has been inspired, but we're only on lap 2 of 25.
It's got to rain a bit more. That's what's going to save him. But you can see there, look, the Australian round the outside. He's in the top 10. He's working his way through the order. It's game on for second place as now, look, Spike Goddard finds it a bit tougher from here on in because he's racing against very forceful people, very formidable people. Esteban Ocon has just gained 1 spot at the expense of Ed Jones. There's one that runs out way wide. That's Beretta, isn't it? Michele Beretta, number 8. Yes, it is. In the Euro International car. He's back on the circuit now, but Goddard's life is getting harder, partly because the gaps have opened up, partly because these are people with good racecraft who are going to defend, but he's got the traction, look, and he's about to make a move against Lucas Auer. He's done it, he's passed Auer, coming up towards the chicane.
So through the education chicane they come, and Spike Goddard now up the inside, just the superior traction that he will have on those wet weather tyres. He really is making some progress as diving in to take the drive-through penalty is that car of Sean Galisle.
Leader through. Antonio Fuoco is ahead at the moment by over a second. It's game on for fourth because King and Ferrucci are together. Ocon is up into sixth place now, but Spike Goddard, not surprisingly, has just done the fastest lap of the race, and Goddard is 5.9 seconds back from Antonio Fuoco. So this is what we need to monitor now and see how that gap comes down and for how long the wet tyres still have an advantage. Verstappen running second, in third is Giovinazzi, fourth and fifth King, and then Ferrucci up into sixth. Now he's Goddard. He's easily worked his way past Ocon, so you can see at the moment the wets still have an advantage. I've also got a feeling that it's not a consistent track surface. It's wetter in certain parts than others, and here it's really wet. And there, look up the inside, goes 22. That is Andy Chang, 10th on his wet tyres.
So that just proving the point at this stage in the race, and you can see the spray still being chucked up there. I think you're absolutely right, though. Across the entire race duration, there's going to need to be some more rain for those wet weather tyres still to offer that advantage.
The other one I think that might have tricked us and gone on to wet could have been Beretta, because he also is running strongly at the moment, and there you can see the battle is on. Esteban Ocon is coming under attack there. Yes, it is wet, isn't it? Number 8, Michele Beretta. So he was one that we haven't got a shot of on the grid, but you can see the drive he's got coming out of the corner. He has just done the absolute best in Sector 1, Michele Beretta, who's had his pretty dark days in the championship this year. He's on the back of Lucas Auer now. I'll give you a rundown of the order at the end of the lap as there. Look, Andy Chang, the Macanese driver, works his way past the championship leader, Esteban Ocon, who's not used to being overtaken.
No.
Well, it's happening now, but it's all down to tyres. But is the track surface going to stay like this to help those on wet tyres? There's Beretta up the inside of Auer. Through he goes quite easily, that. Leaders go through. It's still 11 tenths for Ocon to Verstappen. Giovinazzi third. Goddard is up to fourth, and he's now 4.2 seconds away from the leader. It was 5.9 last time. Goddard goes down now towards turn one. There he is, but he's still under attack. Jordan King, who has just lost the place, tries to rather impudently fight back. Andy Chang is about to have a go round the outside of Santino Ferrucci. There he goes. Andy Chang must be thinking, hey, this is easy in FIA Formula 3, isn't it? I'm overtaking people left, right and centre. But it's because he is on wets and they're on slicks. How's Sean Gallard getting on after his drive-through? It's put him down into 24th and last place. So there's the leader for Ocon, ahead of Verstappen now in his Red Bull colours. Third is Giovinazzi, and it won't be third for long because now Spike Goddard is right with him. Sixth there is Andy Chang. There's nothing like wet weather to spice up any form of racing, is there?
No, you're right. And here goes Spike Goddard then just taking a look on the outside of Giovinazzi there, trying to claim that P3 place. And once again, Spike Goddard still having a look there. And now Andy Chang then up the inside of Jordan King and actually made that look quite easy as well. Now you can see there how Chang is diving for the wetter part of the circuit to cool those tyres. Still, Spike Goddard having a go at Antonio Giovinazzi here. Up towards the NGK chicane they come, and Spike has just found it a little more difficult perhaps to get past Antonio Giovinazzi, but now with the superior traction off the back of the NGK chicane, if he remains committed to this around the final turn here at the Nürburgring, he should take that place.
He does indeed, but that is a section that for me looks a lot drier than others. That little bit coming uphill out of the chicane. Goddard has gone through, but now he's got to look after these tyres. Remember, these are 35-minute races as a maximum time slot, and we've got 28 minutes of that to run as they go now down towards the right-hander at turn one, heading into the Mercedes arena. So Goddard is third, driving the race of his life. In fourth place then is Giovinazzi. The lead gap is 1.2 for Ocon to Verstappen. More importantly, it is 3.9 for Ocon to Goddard. Now, we've spoken about Spike Goddard because he's drawn attention to himself through the overtaking. As there, look, you can see Blomqvist going around the outside of Esteban Ocon, and they're both on slicks. This is for 8th place, and Blomqvist goes ahead of him. This is bad news for Ocon. He's losing places, and there's a spin in the background. It was one of the Muka cars, and I think it might have been Lucas Auer who has rotated. We'll check in a moment which one emerges. There was something orange going the wrong way, that was for sure. Ocon fights back down at the hairpin, retakes his 8th place. What I was going to say was, in fairness to Antonio Fuoco, he really worked hard on the opening lap to get the race lead and was really good on cold tyres and with great car control in the wet there. Yeah,
no, you're absolutely right. So Fuoco leading with 1.2. So now Spike Goddard has really closed the gap, hasn't he, to Max Verstappen. And Max Verstappen will be very aware of the fact, of course, that the opening lap wasn't the one that he would have liked necessarily, but Fuoco doing so very well, as you'd mentioned. Now Spike Goddard right on the back of Verstappen.
The wets are still working. You can see that in part because of the gap coming down and down and down. It's also there in lap times. Goddard has done 2 absolute best on this lap in the sectors. He comes over the timing line now. First to third. He's down to 1.4 seconds. Goddard should get the lead on this lap. But life now is getting tougher and tougher because Verstappen will make his Dallara Volkswagen as wide as possible. And wide goes Fuoco. The lead was almost chucked it away. He has. He's in the gravel. Through into the lead goes Verstappen, up into second goes Spike Goddard, and Antonio Fuoco has made a mistake as here comes Goddard for the race lead. Verstappen slithers out wide. Goddard has a look, but he can't yet do it. Fuoco is gaining ground, hand over fist. He's absolutely furious with himself. It was his mea culpa moment at turn 1 that did for all of that. But now Verstappen leads the way, but for how long? Here comes Goddard trying to tow up the inside. Fuoco wants to buy back into this as well. Goddard going to the outside line, looking for more grip, looking for a gap coming out of the corner. He may well dive through, but this was what Fuoco did. He just got it wrong. He came in too quickly into turn 1, lost traction, ran it out wide, and that dumped him back down to third place. So he's back on and catching. Do we have a new leader? Not yet, but we are about to. Here comes Goddard up the inside. Is he going to be able to make the move now as they head up the hill towards the chicane? He's not quite close enough there. Look at the difference in the track colour. There's the dry line. Goddard goes to the wet part. I said he was going to lead on this lap. He's got 2 corners in which to prove me right. Through the chicane they come as he got the drive out of the chicane. First of all, he rides the curve. Now to the inside, heading up towards the final corner, the Coca-Cola curve. But Verstappen now is defending for all he is worth, and Goddard is not quite, I don't think, going to get the advantage, but he's going to have a look. Coming over the line, it's going to be down at turn 1, isn't it? Over the line they go. 1/5 of a second between them, and now Spike Goddard makes his run for race leadership. He pulls out. Is he going to be able to make the move? No, he's not. Remember, Verstappen, defending on the wet part of the road, is on slick tyres. Can Goddard get the drive out of turn 1? Yes, he can. He's up the inside, but that becomes the outside. It matters not. Through he goes. And here is a phrase we've not used this year. Spike Goddard leads in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The Australian is up front.
And I have to say, that move around Verstappen was absolutely brilliant to watch. Of course, it's that part of the circuit which seems to be wetter than most, and there it is in slow-mo for you in replay. He just went past him as if he was stood still.
So that gives
and
Jake
Dennis goes round.
Moved off with Jules Szymkowiak, and there's broken suspension, I fear, in that, looking at the way the car sits. Yeah, I think Jake Dennis very definitely has got a punctured tyre and damaged suspension. I was going to say that gives you a leader of Goddard on lap 7, but in a 25-lap race there is still a long way to go in which those tyres could deteriorate. Broken wheel, certainly, but is the suspension damage for Jake Dennis as well?
I think so. So now what Spike has got to do is
do a rain dance.
Yes, not only that, but of course in these early stages of the race, and we're still only on lap 6 of 25, is to get as far up and build as big a cushion as he possibly can. As we're watching Andy Chang, another one that's shod with those wet weather tyres, who's P5 and now chasing Antonio Giovinazzi. So Spike Goddard needs to put as much margin between himself and Max Verstappen as he possibly can in case no more rain comes. I've just looked out of the comms booth window, David, blue skies now.
Yeah, I mean, that shot, and that's the part of the circuit on which we are based, you can see now that even when you go for the wet part of the road, there's not much spray being generated. So Goddard now needs to try and get on with this and pull away if he can, but he also needs to do a rain dance. Not easy strapped into a car. The other wet shod drivers, Chang is running 5th, Beretta is 10th, so he's not really had the same progress as Goddard has. It's also not only the first time that he has led a race, but also it's the first time we've seen the NBE, the Neil Brown Engineering Power Unit, leading a race. So that in itself is a real boost for Neil Brown and his guys. They specialise in Formula 3 engines. They build a very good touring car engine for the BTCC these days. There's Chang, he's 5th.
Back to my judicial service for you, and the incident we saw between Jules Szymkowiak and Jake Dennis was being investigated, has been investigated, and no further action following that investigation. As that's
Beretta. Beretta became a revolver there as he spins, and the Italian, who is on wets, making a mistake. So I think what he did, in fairness, was perhaps just touch the painted curb, and that even on wet tyres can still spit you off the road. Round he went, Beretta rejoined. Right, there is Spike Goddard, who is thinking, OK, right, I've done one part of the job. I've got from virtually the back of the grid. He started 20th. He now leads. Where's the rest of the rain? And the clouds have really broken up in the last 10 or 15 minutes. What was a grey sky is now blue, and there are puffy white things hovering over the circuit. It is not looking as likely that Goddard is going to be able to hang on to this win.
Well, to be fair, he pulled another 5 tenths away over the last lap. The margin now is some 2.7 seconds.
Yeah.
It was 2.2 on the previous lap, so still working for the moment.
Indeed so. There's still enough wet out there, you're quite right. The other thing to look for is Verstappen versus Fuoco, because that could be, ultimately, the race lead battle, and it's down to 9 tenths of a second. This is a replay of Andy Chang at the start. Also Spike Goddard on the wets, being wished well by the engineers. And somebody at T-Sport, Russell Eacott's team, got it absolutely bang on the money up to now. Now, it was Roy Nissany who stalled and was thankfully avoided by all and by sundry. And Roy Nissany's got himself up into 20th place now. Lucky not to get hit, wasn't he, by the back of the grid as they all charged away. Normally a driver raises an arm or two, but I think Nissany was busy on the buttons trying to fire the engine up, so he didn't do that. But this was Fuoco, round the outside into turn 1. That didn't quite pay off for him, but he stood his ground and then forced the issue through the Mercedes arena to grab the race lead.
And you could see even there at that point that Goddard was trying to make moves, and well, the superiority of those wet weather tyres was going to come into play, of course, over the opening couple of laps. So Verstappen and Fuoco very close together there, and this a replay.
Goddard's progress was just inexorable, wasn't it? Because with the better traction up the inside there, that was his pass on Antonio Giovinazzi. So we have now done 9 laps. He leads by 2 seconds. Goddard, Verstappen, Fuoco. Now, Fuoco is falling away markedly from Verstappen, but I just wonder now whether we're getting to the point where the dry tyres are starting to work better, because Giovinazzi is now doing purple sectors.
And equally, 7 tenths have gone away from the margin between Goddard and Verstappen, so perhaps you're right. And of course, what Spike Goddard will be doing, he'll be driving a slightly different line on this circuit now, still looking for those damp patches to try and cool those wet weather tyres rather than shred them to bits.
I have to say, I think it's the wrong call. I think it's going to dry out enough. I can't see where the rain is coming from, and Goddard is going to end up, I fear, back where he started. The same is true for Chang, because the road is drying. There are still some battles, of course, that have not yet shaken out, like Ferrucci and Ocon, who are squabbling over 7th on the road at the moment. But what about Verstappen to Fuoco? Verstappen has just done the absolute best in Sector 1. Slick shod car, quicker than the wet cars now. The wet shod cars in that first sector. So the gap, as we had it, was 2 seconds. Lucas Auer has just done the absolute best in Sector 1. Pendulum is swinging, isn't it, back towards those on the slick tyres. And here, look now, this is Andy Chang almost touching wheels with Jordan King. This is for 5th place. And look, Jordan King is about to try and retake the place on the inside of the chicane. He can't quite do it. I know under normal circumstances, Jordan King, who was last year's British Championship winner, you would say is quicker than Andy Chang, but the point here is that the slick tyres now are having that advantage. Irrespective of the driver's pace, this is down to tyres for the moment, and King has bought back into this. Verstappen is now 4 tenths back, and he's just done the fastest lap of the race.
And here we can see Verstappen is now right on the back of Spike Goddard. So, as Verstappen just has to pile on the opposite lock there as he got a very sideways moment. There are still damp patches on this circuit, and the turn 1 there, as you can see, that car going very, very sideways. So there are still damp patches there, but Goddard lost 1.6 seconds over the last lap, and now Verstappen is challenging to retake the lead that was almost gifted to him by Fuoco's off.
Yeah, I mean, Fuoco is the one really that's lost out most, you could argue, because this was his race for the taking, and he's thrown it away, thrown the lead away at least. So Jordan King is ahead of Chang and back up into 5th. Now this is Ferrucci defending from Ocon. It's not something we have to say very often either. The championship leader is really having a very subdued race here. He had a miserable time at the Red Bull Ring, didn't he, involved in incidents and dramas. Now he can't get past Ferrucci, who qualified oh so well to be 3rd on the grid. Behind them is Blomqvist, and he's trying to get involved in this battle pack as well. Lucas Auer is catching up to them. Felix Rosenqvist, 12, has just done the absolute best in the first sector, and Spike Goddard leads, but I fear not for long as Verstappen sticks his nose up the inside coming into the Coca-Cola curve, and now he has got the better traction. Goddard's wet tyres are going off. They're overheating, and now he can't even get to the wet part of the circuit. Verstappen has got that line for turn 1.
He has, but this could seesaw because going into that turn 1, that's very, very damp. And this is where Spike Goddard could try and switch back and grab that lead back again. I fear, indeed he does, but I fear it's not going to last very long because Max Verstappen's tyres clearly are liking this circuit more than the wet weather tyres that Spike Goddard has. But Spike does retake that lead. Verstappen will be right on him and he'll stick with him like glue here. And of course, once they get to a drier part of the circuit, theoretically, Verstappen should be able to sail past him.
And we're not quite at the halfway point. There's no way Goddard can hang on in there for another 12 laps of the race, as now you can see Andy Chang under attack because round the outside has gone Blomqvist. He's also got past Esteban Ocon here as well as Blomqvist, and then behind the pair of them is Lucas Auer, who is joining in as well. So Chang, you can see now, is very definitely struggling, and he's falling back through the pack. And drama, Shimkoviak and Tatiana Calderon have come to grief. That's at turn 1, I suspect, and this could be a safety car if they can't get going again. We'll see what happens. Shimkoviak finds reverse gear. That's the second incident he's been involved in, and they are both going to get going, thankfully, so the track will be clear. Meantime, Spike Goddard is doing his best to pull away, but I think Verstappen is getting closer and closer all the time. You're looking at the replay of how Shimkoviak and Calderon clattered into each other. Bit clumsy on all fronts, that. The other danger in this now, by the way, is Giovinazzi. He's just done the absolute best in the middle section. And here, Max Verstappen takes over the lead once again. Verstappen is back up front, and Fuoco is with them as well. He is not out of the game yet. He's brought back in while the leaders have held themselves up. He goes ahead of Goddard. He's up to second place now, the Italian. There's a bit of wet on the road here that will help Goddard, but it's a forlorn hope. Yes, he's got the drive out of the corner. He's back up into second place. He's going to have another look for the lead on the wet part of the road. But now Verstappen has got the drive coming out of the corner. Here comes Fuoco, back up the inside. Does he get his second position back? They're almost together. He's done it. He's back through. And now Fuoco needs to get away from Goddard and go after the leader.
Well, we've seen Spike Goddard in a position for the first time this season where he's been fighting at the front and, to be fair, conducting himself really, really well. Of course, he's had the wet weather tyres and in those conditions alongside the race leader and P2. Driven like an absolute demon, but now the advantage he had is just as we get to the half distance here in this race, with no further rain, he's just going to fall back down that pack, isn't he?
His third about to change. Here comes Giovinazzi, winner in Austria, up the inside. Goddard gets forced out wide. Giovinazzi's a pretty uncompromising driver. He was coming through there, make no mistake. And Spike Goddard drops down into fourth. But just have a look at how much time he's lost. There is Goddard, and there, almost out of shot, is Verstappen. And look at the way as well that Verstappen here has driven away from Fuoco. He lost the time while battling, but under normal clear road circumstances, Verstappen is just storming away. The man who was on pole position for the 5th time this year continues now to build the lead, and an 8th win for Verstappen looks like it's heading his way.
And of course, with Ocon having a torrid time of it here in race 1, Verstappen just narrowing that margin at the top of the points chart.
Yes, that's right. The gap between them comes down a little bit further. Whether it's going to be another of those demon weekends, Verstappen really needs 3 wins, doesn't he? Like he had at Spa and the Norris ring.
Okay, car number 18. We saw that incident with Jules Shimkoviak and also Tatiana Calderon. Tatiana Calderon receiving a drive-through penalty for that. So Tatiana Calderon has 3 laps within which to take the drive-through penalty as the sun begins to beat down now on this Nürburgring circuit.
Now, the other question is, how long will T-Sport keep Spike Goddard on track for? Because for as long as he's out there, his tyres are deteriorating. He's going to go slower and slower. He won't run at the same pace. The tyres will go off, so he'll lose grip in those tyres. Each lap will be worse than the previous one because they're losing all the heat and all the advantage he's got. There is Calderon serving the drive-through for causing an avoidable collision. Now, do they keep him out there and just do damage limitation, or do they bring him in, waste time, because he'll obviously lose a big chunk of it and lose lots of places, but put him on a fresher set of slick tyres and see what he can do. Here's Ocon to the outside of Ferrucci at the chicane, and Esteban Ocon goes through, and that therefore puts him now up into 7th place. That's a really work to defend. Ferrucci in the pit lane, and Ocon still had to defend even there. So you've now got Blomqvist 6th, Ocon 7th, Ferrucci is 8th, Lucas Auer is behind them in 9th, and this is how Verstappen grabbed the advantage coming through the Coca-Cola curve, up on the inside of Spike Goddard. slicks ahead of wets. Now the race leaders are on to lap 15. Verstappen is 1.2 seconds up from Fuoco, and it's like a glorious sunny day now.
It is, and to go back to the point you were making about what will they be doing at T-Sport, will they bring him in now? Surely, with no further rain looking very likely, you'd be better off bringing him in now, because he's going to then go on, as you made the point, onto a fresher set of slicks and get him out as quickly as you can, because he's just losing fistfuls of time every lap now.
Trouble is, how much are those slicks going to benefit him, because the others that started on slicks on a wet road haven't taken that much life out of them.
No, the degradation has been less.
Hard, exactly.
Yes.
And you know how difficult it is to overtake in a Formula 3 car with everything being equal. So if you're all on slicks, Spike Goddard may struggle. So I'm tempted, if I were T-Sport, to keep him out there, cross our fingers, and just see what we can score as a result. He's still in 4th place.
Yes.
Just. Now, where is Jordan King? Because he's only a 10th back. There is Spike Goddard. Look for King behind him. So as they come up towards the completion of the lap, you've got Verstappen and Fuoco now split by a second. In fact, we've had the change, have we not? Jordan King, yes, is now up into 4th place. There's the replay of it. So, okay, we're 5th if we're Spike Goddard. And he's about to drop another place, because as he goes over the line, Blomqvist is half a second back. He's going to tumble here down the order if he's not careful. Fuoco has not given up. This was the other thing I was edging towards telling you about. You can see that Fuoco is pressing on again. He's 1 second back. 1.3 behind him is Giovinazzi. So the 3 leaders are all still pretty evenly matched here, and the gaps are coming down. We're not yet necessarily looking at Verstappen as a shoe-in for the win here.
So we watch Antonio Fuoco then. Lap 15 of 25. There's a race leader, Max Verstappen, and Fuoco then. Last time around on the full lap, he was exactly a second behind Max Verstappen. So Fuoco did a lot of hard work right at the beginning of the race, then lost it through an error. He is trying to redeem himself in the mid-stage of this race as he chases after our race leader, Max Verstappen. P3, Antonio Giovinazzi. P4, Jordan King. P4, Jordan King. P5 is Spike Goddard, who is going to be under pressure shortly, isn't he, from Tom Blomqvist.
And he's got Ocon, Auer, Ferrucci and Rosenqvist all in quick succession. Look, it's happening already. Ocon has gone past him, Auer goes past him, Rosenqvist is about to have a go. So that means that Goddard is now 9th, and you can see from the way the car is sliding around, he has now got the same traction problem that those on slicks had at the start of the race. It's happened in reverse for him, because those wet tyres now, and there's contact between him and Rosenqvist. He's not giving up without a fight, he's not Goddard. But it's a little bit silly, this, because he's on the wrong tyres. They've got the speed, they're going to come past him anyway, because there's so long left in the race. Defending is almost pointless.
As you say, the pendulum has just completely swung in the other direction, hasn't it? Yeah. And, well, to be fair, Spike is, his forceful defence, whilst admirable, is utterly futile, isn't it?
Absolutely. Unless the rain comes again, and it's not looking as though it will. Rosenqvist now has got a little bit of damage, but look, he's got the drive. That's how easy it is now for a car on slicks on a dry road to get past a car on wet, overheating wet on a dry road. I know Goddard is trying to salvage something out of this race, but it's just not going to work for him now. Everybody else around him is that bit quicker because they've got the traction.
So valiant effort from Spike Goddard, but sadly he is absolutely on the wrong rubber now. Unless the heavens were to open now, and looking through the comms booth window, that doesn't look very likely. As you can see, the sun beating down on the Spike Goddard car in the picture ahead of you. And here's a replay of Spike once again with that valiant defence, and this is where they just touched.
I mean, Rosenqvist was ahead, but on the outside. I'm not sure it's deliberate on the part of Goddard. Certainly, he just slithered into him. That's Sandro Zella getting it wrong. Now, Goddard is out of the points. So now I would say bring him in, because he's not going to achieve anything unless people fall off ahead of him. So those wet tyres are only going to get worse and worse and worse. Now that he's out of the points, try something. We are on lap 18 of 25. We've got 7.5 minutes to go. And as the race leader, Max Verstappen, has a half a second advantage over Antonio Fuoco. The Italian at the moment looks the stronger, but he locks up at the hairpin and goes too deep into the corner and scrabbles wide. But Fuoco has not given up. Verstappen was able, when he got back ahead of Goddard, to drive away and build that gap. But Fuoco, if he can stop making little mistakes like that,
yes,
you know, one has cost him the lead, that one we've just seen has cost him time. If he can keep his head in all of this, I reckon he could have a go back at Verstappen.
And in P3 is Giovinazzi, and they're fairly evenly matched now as we see them down past the back of the paddock, heading towards the NGK chicane now. And 1, 2, 3 go through, and well, last time round it was half a second between Verstappen and Fuoco. I think Fuoco's just pulled a little bit out of that now. No, it stays exactly the same, and then Giovinazzi 1.4 off the lead now.
I mean, they're trading thousands, and Verstappen had just done the fastest lap of the race. Jordan King has now set the fastest lap of the race, but the crucial thing here is that you've got the three leaders bunching up. It is now 1.4 seconds that cover the top three. It was 2.4 a couple of 3 laps ago.
Yeah.
So certainly Giovinazzi is closing on Fuoco, who in turn is staying with Verstappen. Fuoco has to get on with the job here and try and get past Verstappen, otherwise he'll get caught, he'll have to defend, he'll go slower, and Verstappen will pull away once more, which might be what Verstappen's plan is. He might, you never know, just be trying to back off a little and back Fuoco into the clutches of Giovinazzi.
Yes.
Sort him out, then I can drive away again, thinks Max. That could be the plan here. At certain parts of the circuit he looks quicker, but Antonio Fuoco is doing his best to stay with him. We're on now lap 19 out of 25 as over the timing line comes Roy Nissany, who is up into 16th place after stalling on the grid. And have we had any of those drivers on wets pitting? Not yet, we haven't. They're still persevering out there.
And I guess at this stage, I know you said a few moments ago when Goddard first fell out of the points and he's down there now, P13, isn't he? You said bring him in now. Might as well, do you know what I mean? What are we going to gain by that? I mean, don't know.
I mean, where is he in the race order? He is in 13th place, and actually that's not that bad. Okay, he's out of the points, but keep him out there and see what he can salvage. We are now looking at time, not laps, look, because it's been a wet start to the race. It's going to go to the time, not to the number of laps. We are on lap 20 out of 25. We've got 5 minutes to go, so we're not quite going to hit the requisite number of laps, as the lead gap is up to 7/10, and first to third has really shot up, 2.3. Giovinazzi falling away a little bit on that lap. It was a slow lap from him rather than the others going quickly. So that's what Fuoco needs. He needs Giovinazzi to drop away. Fuoco close, but is he going to get near enough to mount an attack?
So there is our race leader, Max Verstappen then. And of course, this is good news for him in the championship charge with Esteban Ocon down there, rather, in P6 at the moment. So Verstappen leads 7/10 over Antonio Fuoco. Then it's Giovinazzi P3. Then we see King, Blomqvist and Ocon. The top 6 there through the NGK chicane goes race leader P2. And now into the picture comes Giovinazzi as well in P3.
25 points for Verstappen if he were to win, only 8 for Ocon for 6th place. So it's not just that he's outscoring him, but he's doing it by quite an impressive number of points. Over the line, the race leaders have gone, and the gap is 1.2 seconds. Verstappen looking stronger. A Goddard update, in the meantime, is that he is still now having to defend for all he's worth ahead of Sandro Zeller. And that therefore means that he has fallen even further down the order, because Zeller, we know, has had a spin anyway. So Goddard's struggling even more now on completely unsuitable tyres. They were great for those first few laps, but the rain he needed just never came. Wouldn't be at all surprised, given the fickle nature of this region, if after the race it starts to hoon it down.
I know.
It'll be too little too late when it... Here he comes, up towards the chicane. And Sandro Zeller, look, just breezes by. What Goddard did, in fairness, in that first stint of the race was prove his racecraft and the fact that he could do it. I know the tyres and the grip helped him, but he certainly worked his way up the order pretty impeccably. So he now slips further down the order. We have got 2.5 minutes to go, and Tatiana Calderon is off and has damaged the nose, look, because there's bodywork lying away from the car. Tatiana Calderon had just done the absolute best in the final sector, and by the look of it, turn 1 is where she has come to grief. So Tatiana Calderon is off the road. Now, the race leader Verstappen is getting away. This is for second look, all of a sudden. Fuoco versus Giovinazzi. Any chance the Italian has of going for the race lead has gone. Verstappen comes through. He will get 2 more laps out of this, and his advantage now is 2 seconds.
So, yes, now Fuoco is having to adopt defend mode, isn't he, from Antonio Giovinazzi, who is P3. Fuoco there filling your screen, and you can see just how close Giovinazzi is. Fuoco seemingly better through the first complex of corners here. Max Verstappen just disappearing up the road now in the lead with just under 2 minutes left remaining in this race. As you've said, just a couple of laps is all we'll get from this. Our race leader Max Verstappen then with the new Red Bull livery adorning that car.
And the Verstappen family have got everything crossed for Max. The fans hoping that this can be yet another victory. What are we looking for? An 8th, which would draw him back level again with Esteban Ocon. He'll squeeze 1 more lap out of this. He's got back markers now to work his way past as well. That's Michele Beretta that he's just put a lap on, and he stayed out on his wet tyres. I know he never got to the lead, but again, it does show you that effectively he's lost, let's say, 3/4 of a lap since the road dried out fully.
So Verstappen then around the final turn here at the Nürburgring with 1 more lap left to run.
Fascinating fact 37 as he starts his last lap is that now Verstappen, who at one point, remember, was chasing Spike Goddard, now leads him by 72 seconds and will possibly get close enough to put a lap on him before the very end, because Goddard is not that far away up the road, working his way out of the Mercedes arena as Verstappen now works his way through the traffic. Impeccable drive by Verstappen. I know he lost out early to Fuoco, but he's not made any real mistakes in this race. The conditions have come back to him, and he did everything right on the slick tyres, waiting for the track conditions to improve, then he could push further. And so Max Verstappen is heading for win number 8. He's going to narrow that margin slightly to Esteban Ocon in the championship as he turns his way through the hairpin. It's the sprint version of the Grand Prix circuit that we use for the DTM weekend and therefore for Formula 3. But for second place, that could yet change before the end, couldn't it? Fuoco putting a lap on Chang. That's helped him a little bit because he's drawn out by 3 lengths over Giovinazzi. They go through the yellow flag zone, past where Calderon had gone off. Chang way up the curb there in the background. But Max Verstappen is heading for victory in what has been another mighty, impressive drive. Remember, this is his first season of car racing. And Red Bull, which have now put their faith behind him, I think will be well pleased with this because he has delivered in style. The Van Amersfoort racing car, Volkswagen engine, the Dallara chassis. The man behind the wheel is Max Verstappen, who wins for the 8th time this year as he comes across the line. Max Verstappen wins round 25 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. A fascinating race. Second over the line, Antonio Fuoco, and third, Antonio Giovinazzi. Jordan King takes 4th. Tom Blomqvist 5th, and the fastest lap of the race on the last lap went to Tom Blom. 6th, Esteban Ocon. The championship leader, Lucas Auer, takes 7th ahead of Felix Rosenqvist, who comes through for 8th. And then it's a long old gap before we should get Santino Ferrucci heading for 9th, just ahead of Ed Jones, who, remember, started 2nd on the grid but lost out big time on the first few laps of the race. Ferrucci is 9th, Jones 10th, Van der Laar takes 11th, and Felix Sorales has just gone over the timing line to round out the top dozen. But Max Verstappen takes victory, and the progress of Max through the single-seater ranks will be fascinating for the future, because in his first year of car racing he's walked into a championship which is so competitive against people with more Formula 3 knowledge, and he's rather shown them up on occasions. And where does he go from here now that there's Red Bull money helping him? Could it be a Formula Renault 3.5 or even a GP2 step straight away? It really will be interesting. We're talking as though he's the champion or the championship leader. Esteban Ocon, of course, has that mantle at the moment. Both of them rookies in Formula 3 this year. Ocon, another good drive in terms of scoring points, maintaining his championship lead. And where does he go for the future? Because, of course, France could do with a Grand Prix driver again. And Esteban Ocon certainly has proved his ability this year. But at the moment, the headlines are going to be about Verstappen, because he takes honours by, in the end, over 3 seconds. And for Van Amersfoort Racing, the Dutch team, it's another successful outing. Of course, it's now 8 wins in this, plus victory in the Formula 3 Masters at Zandvoort. Confirmation of round 25. Verstappen wins from Fuoco. Giovinazzi rounds out the podium ahead of Jordan King and Tom Blomqvist. Esteban Ocon is 6th ahead of Lucas Alve and Felix Rosenqvist and Santino Ferrucci, with Ed Jones, the Emirati-based driver, rounding out the top 10. 11th is where you find Dennis van der Laar ahead of Felix Sorales. Nicholas Latifi 13th. Gustavo Menezes, a bit disappointing today, 14th. Roy Nissany battled up to 15th. Sean Galal, after his drive-through, was 16th ahead of Shimkoviak, then Alex Toril and Spike Goddard 19th in the end, with Andy Chang and Michele Beretta and Sandro Zella completing those that got to the line. So the noisy Van Amersfoort guys are in full cry as Max Verstappen gets out of the car, and Antonio Fuoco must be livid with himself, because had it not been for that mistake, there was a win perhaps that was there for the taking.
Yes, I think you're right. And we saw a couple of mistakes, didn't we, during the course of the race from Antonio Fuoco. And, well, let's take nothing away from Max Verstappen, who kept his cool head, didn't he? And
he did
managed to get that lead back. And, well, apart from a couple of opportunities that Fuoco had when he got really, really close, he never looked challenged, really, or troubled. So Max Verstappen, Antonio Fuoco and Antonio Giovinazzi, the 1, 2, 3. And you mentioned, just as you were doing the roundup of the full result there, Spike Goddard going from P1 to P19 on the wet shod car. But
and in the end, ending up 1 minute and 31 seconds behind the race winner. As I say, he was so nearly lapped on that last lap. But yeah, if the weather had gone in his favour, it would have been a very different story. But it was, as we said before the race, if you're near the back, it's worth rolling the dice and seeing what you can salvage, what you can do.
We've seen this banner at a number of venues. Max Verstappen overtaking is still an art, and there will be probably a very disappointed Esteban Ocon.
Yeah,
we see him with the dour face, don't we, when things haven't gone his way.
It wasn't, in fairness, Ocon's finest race, because when the track dried out, and in theory everybody had equal equipment, slick tyres and the same type of car, he never really made much progress. He was losing ground early on, struggling, it seemed, with slicks on a wet road, and maybe the setup of the car for what turned out to be transitional conditions just was not right. But we did not see the best of Ocon in that, and the body language there is more sort of, well, never mind, you got some points, rather than well done on 6th, isn't it? You know,
sure.
It's a bit glum, that mood in Prema Power Team, but for whatever reason, Ocon, even when the track dried, did not deliver, and he ended up 19 seconds away from Verstappen. That's a big, big deficit. Antonio Giovinazzi, though, looks like he's back to form. He had, of course, a win at the Red Bull Ring. He had a win on the road that he then lost with a safety car infringement. And again, he's outpaced Tom Blomqvist, which is significant in that Inter-Nissan Jagonia-IAM battle. Antonio Fuoco second, but it could have been so different had it not been for a mistake at the first corner. And so Max Verstappen is the man who comes across the line victorious and takes his 8th win of the season. But we have just had on the timing screen the race result under investigation. More than that we know not, but the race result is under investigation. More news when we get it, or indeed on the FIA Formula 3 Europe website if the news comes later in the day, because of course they get 2 races tomorrow. There's a further qualifying session on day 1 of the weekend for them now, and so the teams put race out of mind, then go back to qualifying setup where they need 2 good lap times for 2 grids for tomorrow's 2 races. So it may be that the news about the race result, if any action is taken, will come much later in the day. There you can see what the Nürburgring now looks like. There are still some damp patches, there are some grey clouds, but look at the pit straight. Looks so dry compared to what we had over half an hour ago.
And the point you made was that once it has stopped raining, this circuit does dry out in places very, very quickly. And we saw that absolutely during the course of the race, where the first part of the race, well, clearly it was favouring those that had gambled on those wet weather tyres, but the gamble ultimately wasn't going to pay off, as we look at some brilliant slow-mos of our race winner Max Verstappen with the new Red Bull livery on that car, celebrating the fact that, of course, this week he's signing to Red Bull, And you made the point there, perhaps I made the point of how delighted he must be by being picked up by Red Bull. You also made the point that puts a lot of pressure on those young shoulders, doesn't it? And we perhaps lose sight of the fact that this is his first competitive season in a car.
I'm not suggesting that the Red Bull Motorsport involvement will end anytime soon, but if and when it does, there's a fascinating book for somebody to write about all the people that have been connected as drivers to that programme, whether it's been in Europe or in American racing or wherever you choose. And there are so many that you forget were connected to it because they didn't deliver and were dropped like a hot stone. And the story has been a fascinating one over the years of these different drivers and teams, of course, that have had Red Bull backing, and those that have delivered really have done a very good job because they've had the ability and the budget behind them.
Yes.
But those that have struggled in a category to find their feet or had a bad season or not gelled are ruthlessly dispensed with by Helmut Marko, who's the driver talent scout effectively for Red Bull. And so somewhere in there is a book to be written. It will be a fascinating one, and the experiences of those drivers that have been treated, you could say, both well and badly, I think will be fascinating to hear. Christoph Hever, who is the organiser of the championship, is there in the foreground ready to bring the drivers onto the podium. And Max Verstappen, what better way to repay the new faith of Red Bull than with a race win from pole position as well, and he will be on the top step of the podium. There is Antonio Fuoco for second place, and Antonio Giovinazzi will make his way out for third. The only thing that spoils Verstappen's dream debut for Red Bull is that he didn't get the fastest lap. That went to Tom Blomqvist, a driver binned by Red Bull. So the drivers are on the podium. The Van Amersfoort team represented as well, as we will have the national anthem in a moment of Max Verstappen, the winning Dutch driver. So for Max Verstappen, for the 8th time this year, we have the Dutch national anthem. And as the trophy is presented by Manfred Sandbichler, the motorsport manager of Hankook Tire Europe, it's another one for the growing collection on the mantelpiece of Max Verstappen.
Yes, the mantelpiece, which is now supported by a steel RSJ, I would think. Mr. Norbert Heinz is the race director of ADSC Saarland EV, makes the team's presentation to Van Amersfoort.
And then for second place, Sam Bickler comes back to present Antonio Fuoco, whose demeanour is not a man ecstatic to be second. I think he does realise that was one that got away. He may, of course, not have been able to repel Verstappen, but you never know. And there, Antonio Giovinazzi, it's taken a long time for him to really find the pace, but he takes third position. He takes the trophy. Of course, there are 2 podiums for this because we have the rookie classification as well. And guess who's going to be on the top of that podium? Yep, it will be Max Verstappen once more as everybody huddles together on the top now for the photographs. And then the traditional Henkel Trocken, the fizzy wine, is there ready for the celebrations in a moment or two. Max Verstappen probably ought now to have a can of Red Bull to squirt over everybody, but tradition dictates that the Henkel Trocken will be sprayed, largely at the teams for now. And Antonio Fuoco, who, as we talk about Verstappen being part of Red Bull's driver academy, Antonio Fuoco part of the Ferrari driver development process. Esteban Ocon attached to the Lotus junior development team. So you have these drivers all with some link to their futures, some link to Formula One and progress up the ranks.
Yes, they're all picked up early on, aren't they? And so Max Verstappen there with the new Red Bull junior team race overalls. So that podium departs, and everything will be readied as you've suggested for the rookie podium, which we'll see in a moment or two. Manfred Sandbichler there, deep in conversation from Hankook Tyres. Of course, tyres, well, they were the defining factor in that race, weren't they?
Yes, absolutely, and Hankook, big supporter of this and the DTM. It supplies the tyres for both, but the Hankook wets versus the Hankook dries early on. And the weather, I say, has got better and better because the clouds have just broken more and more. It's far warmer, it's much sunnier than it was earlier on in the day. And Spike Goddard will go back to the team and say, well, it was worth a punt. We had a go, but the weather conditions just did not play in his favour. Antonio Fuoco, Antonio Giovinazzi ending up second and third against Max Verstappen in this race in the shadow of the Eiffel buildings. As now for the rookie podium, Max Verstappen once more makes his way for the top step. We need the runner-up in the rookies, which is Antonio Fuoco. This isn't a replay of the earlier podium, I have to tell you, because in a moment you'll see that for third place it is Esteban Ocon, who has spent the last 5 minutes looking for a smile, but he's not found one, because I'm afraid it was only sixth place, and the Frenchman, as we've seen this year, doesn't take losing very well. But he's the third of the rookies here at the Nürburgring. Even Max Verstappen doesn't exactly look euphoric, does he? It's another victory, it's another rookie podium win as well, but even his expression doesn't sort of give much away. But anyway, it's a win for him, it's another trophy, and Max Verstappen continues to underline his ability. The speed has never been in question, but you have to say that since he had a couple of accidents at Pau on the street circuit back in May, he's worked hard on being a more complete driver, and it has paid off, because after that he had those 3 wins at Spa, and the racecraft he evinced there was fantastic. And then at the Norris Ring in mixed conditions again in the wet road for a number of the races of the 3 that weekend. Again, he looked like the real deal. And so Max Verstappen may not win the championship. I think on points he's going to be too far back. He needs Ocon to not score and for Verstappen to keep winning outright. But what he has done is certainly draw attention to how good he is. And Macau at the end of the year is going to be a really fascinating event, because it'll be a place new for him. And they always say, if you go well at Macau, you'll go well anywhere. Verstappen will go there, I think, having certainly proved over the course of the season how good a driver he has become. The drivers make their way off the podium. The alarm in the background, incidentally, is cars heading down the pit lane for the next qualifying session as the drivers head away from the podium. Round 25 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship is won by Max Verstappen. A weather-affected race, full of incident, full of drama, full of talking points. A great drive early on by Spike Goddard, but in the end, Max Verstappen, Antonio Fuoco and Antonio Giovinazzi end the race as the top 3. 2 more races to come at the Nürburgring this weekend. They are both tomorrow. Join us if you can for those. For now, for Dave Richardson and from David Addison, bye-bye.